Hi, it's Brandon from thirstgym.com. Today we're going to talk about an exercise called the reverse band squat or the reverse band back squat. It's a fantastic way to overload your nervous system, get used to hitting new PRs and new weights, and we're going to briefly talk about the setup and how you might program this and the execution. So when it comes to the setup, I've got ours set up in our monolift. Not very common will you be able to do this if you don't have a monolift, but I think setting up the reverse bands is significantly easier. You just need 2 carabiners, and you're going to run the band to the top of your monolift and around the bar, and it's actually the inside the collars. So your big wide guys, you might set your bands up here in the middle, so that way you can get your hands out here. Narrow people like me set the bands up on the outside, and that keeps the bands out of the way the whole time. But the other nice thing is, when it comes to adding and taking weight off, you don't have to take the band off each time, and generally when you have the bands ran this way, one thing that's going to definitely change for every lifter and every weight is that as you add plates, the bands either get further out or closer in, and that changes the tension. So what I like is this is always consistent. If you set it up this way and you train with it this way, it's always going to be the same. It's never going to change. It makes it easier for tracking PRs and working with groups. Now, the reason you might do this, like I said, is to get used to heavier weights. So as we have the bands on here, as we go down, the bands are going to help me out of the bottom. They're going to perceive the load to be less on my body, and as I come up, I can unrack and feel the weight that's on the bar. So that's the other great thing about the setup is, as you'll see when I demonstrate it, I can feel the whole weight on my back. With other reverse band options, you can't. The bands are still acting at the top, so really you have no idea what you're truly feeling at all. You just have an idea what's on the actual bar. In this case, you are actually going to be able to feel 100% of the weight. So now that I've got all that set up, we're just going to perform our standard back squat here. So all of that mechanics will be the same. You can watch a video over on our YouTube channel or check out thirstgym.com on how to back squat. We got all that covered for you. All that's going to stay the same. What we're going to do here, though, is I get underneath, get set, get my feet in position, get my bar position set, take a big breath. I'm going to let the weight settle, squat down, and then back up. And rack. So as I went down, I could tell that was very smooth. I could definitely tell that the load was getting less in the bottom. And as I came up, I could definitely tell the bands were helping me, but I could also tell that the weight that I was feeling felt heavier than it did in the bottom. So this is clearly, not what I would squat, but it gives me a good idea from a demonstration standpoint. The bands that you would want to use might change based on how strong you are. So, from a max effort standpoint, if it's just a regular training day and you're doing like a conjugate method, you can definitely obviously mix the bands up to get a different loading stimulus. But generally, what I've found is for most people, the red bands work great until you get up to where you're squatting about 700 pounds. Then you probably are going to want the green bands, and then obviously if you're in a rack or something like that, you're going to have to play around with a little bit more. But the goal is to try to make it to where there's about a 5 to maybe 10% change from the top to the bottom. I can tell you that squatting this without the weights on, because I tried it before I filmed this, that by just using these bands, the bar was coming off my back in the bottom. So we can assume that the red bands are going to take off about 55 pounds. And so if you happen to be about a 500-pound squatter, these are pretty good. Even maybe a 400-pound squatter. But if you get to be a 700-pound squatter, that's really not a big change in weight. But generally the greens are probably about the most you would go. So that covers that. But when it comes to a temp selection, I really like these for my athletes, and I let them build up into feeling weights and loads that they will be able to handle the next week. So we prepare the nervous system prior to actually loading it, and that makes the transition to handling those weights more comfortable come competition day. If you happen to be just like a standard athlete or gym lifter, this is just one way to mix up your training. So if you have any questions about the reverse band back squat, please feel free to leave them in the comment section. I'd be happy, love and be happy to answer any questions you have. Thanks. Have a great day.